A week after Home Minister Amit Shah's visit to the violence-torn state of Manipur and his call for peace, the ground situation has not improved. 3,000 weapons were looted in the second wave of violence. In fresh violence, at least 100 houses in Sarao village of Manipur's Kakching district were set on fire by suspected militants on Sunday. Earlier on Saturday night, suspected militants burned down the residence of former Minister and Congress MLA Ranjit in Kakching district. Besides cluster of houses and shops were also set ablaze by suspected militants. Most of the homes were deserted after the recent exodus to relief camps. Massive combing operations by the police have been launched in the area following the attack. Heavy firing between militant groups and security forces were reported from other parts of the district. Meanwhile, the centre on June 4th appointed a 3-member commission of the inquiry headed by Ajai Lamba, former Chief Justice of Gauhati High Court, to probe the ethnic violence in Manipur. The month-long violence has already claimed 100 lives. 35,000 people have been displaced. In this program, we have been talking about the internal displacement in a state which is massive. We have created refugees within the boundary of Manipur, if I may use the word, and not use the word displaced people. On the other hand, Home Minister Amit Shah on Sunday appealed to the people of Manipur to lift blockade on the Imphal-Dimapur National Highway 2. The National Highway is the lifeline for the transport of essential goods, as it is critical for the supplies to reach Manipur. This is because Manipur does not have rail connectivity as of now. Earlier, Home Minister Amit Shah had appealed to remove Manipur highway blockades to let food medicine pass. Now, there are a number of questions. Why violence continues despite central intervention? One. Second issue is, how come minuscule amount of weapon have been seized? Third, is the approach correct? Can deployment of forces lead to peace, or does it require some sort of a conversation at ground level? Fourth, internet is not information, it's delivery service. It makes your life easy. Data is not talking. Data is distribution of goods and commodities as well. And Manipur seems to be deprived of it. So shouldn't internet be resumed? And lastly, a commission to probe into the violence has been instituted. But don't we require something like Truth and Reconciliation Commission like South Africa, though I'm giving is that as a reference, but when it comes to deep-seated animosity, what is required? Police forces, army, or a political campaign to create peace? Because ultimately people need to live with each other. Is the state government mistaking a political problem, a political issue, a social issue with law and order? Mr. Misao.
Yes, thank you for this time, and I would right away start by saying that the problem in Manipur, this has been something which I've been speaking loudly much before this incident happened. The problem in Manipur is purely political in nature, and this has to be the total and lasting solution has to be brought politically. So by saying that, there were lots of movement from the communities, because in Manipur we have 3 communities, namely the Kukis, Nagas, and Meitei, and these 3 communities have their own political movement, which they've been fighting for. Now, this I was saying, like, unless there is a strong political will from the government, either from the state or from the central, there cannot be any lasting solution to the vexed problem that Manipur is facing. Now, as social activists, I will be speaking from the perspective of what is happening on the ground. I might belong to a particular community, but I don't believe in biasness, I don't believe in prejudice, but I want to speak out the truth. Now, look at the nature and the intensity, the gravity, and the scale of what is happening in Manipur. Unless there is a strong political will from the central government, the so-called the conflict which has been reaching to that scale and like stopping this scale of violence is something which is unimaginable at this point of time. Therefore, now look at what is happening when the Honorable Home Minister Amit Shahji visited Manipur. We respected him, we honor him by showing the tricolor of India, telling them that we are Indian citizens, we are the genuine Indian citizens, and we welcome you and we love you and we honor you. But on the contrary, on the visits, there were numbers of violence happen and numbers of houses being burned down. I am from the Kangpokpi district. I am from the Psycho subdivision. Even in my Psycho subdivision, when Honorable Home Minister was in that particular place in Kangpokpi district, around more than 10 villages were attacked and burned down. And seeing those incidents, in spite of the presence of the Home Minister, if such sporadic kind of attack and violence is happening, how would we trust that kind of government? I would say the state government, where even the chief minister who should speak out the word of peace is always speaking out the communal and using the communal tone.
So, Mr. Misao, you have made a point. I think you have made a very important point that the violence continues despite important people coming in from Delhi. The violence has continued for various reasons. Are we mistaking a political issue, a social issue, a sociological issue as a plain and law and order issue in Manipur? Or do you think that this approach is correct?
I have been saying this right from the outset that, of course, the security spectrum, the lens that we view the situation from is really important, because there are illegal arms floating around, there are illegal infiltrators floating around. So, of course, that spectrum is important, but that is not the only focus point that we can have. I've been saying this right from the very beginning that civil society stakeholding is going to make a huge difference because these are historical problems. These are not new problems. This clash started in the pretense of, the inclusion in the scheduled tribe list, but the goalposts changed to something that has been a long standing demand by one community. So, obviously the nature of these clashes comes into question because you start from one point, now you're asking for another. There's some sort of, in my opinion, when I observe this, there's some sort of, a need to hold the state to ransom, to be given into their demands. So I think, this is a very complicated situation, and one has to call out the obvious the obvious culprits in this, because law and order is going to take time. The ethnic divide is wide. The fault lines have deepened. And these are not really easy areas to comb as well. We cannot expect a solution to come overnight because these are large areas. These are deeply forested areas. The militants know these forest areas really well. So this combing operation has shown its success, but it's going to be slow. So I don't think we should jump the gun and say that, our law and order imperatives are not showing us any results at this moment. They will, but that is going to take time. But in the meanwhile, civil society has to come together. Now, for instance, the blockades on really two of the most and the only accesses into Manipur has been done by locals. Now, what is the need for that? When these are the roads, the Dimapur Imphal route or the Jiribam Imphal route.
This faceless violence, what do we make of it, sir? Madam?
Yes.
Madam, what do we make of this faceless violence?
Well, faceless violence or violence with a face, I feel that this is something which is really very deep. It needs analysis. It needs a practical move from the government side. And as I have said even before, clashes often occur in different parts of the country and also in the Northeast. But as I said last time, let me repeat it again. In 2001, Manipur Assembly was burned down and a number of MLA's residences were burned down as a result of Greater Nagaland or South Nagaland. But then the government, the then government took immediate steps in order to save lives when there was a slogan in the valley, Naga Hatlo means kill Nagas. But the then government immediately took action. It deployed heavy and tight security in every Naga inhabited area in the valley and in all the vulnerable places like Nagaram, Diulaland, and many other places. So as the government immediately took action, not one Naga was killed. And so the situation was brought into normalcy slowly. So lives were saved, though assembly was burned down. And in 1993, there was a clash between the Valley Métis and the Muslims. And it lasted, say, about around 5 days. And it was brought to normalcy. This time is completely different. I'm sorry to say that. This could have been controlled very effectively had the central government taken immediate steps and imposed president's rule. And also the state government, I'm sorry to say that there was no governance at all in the state for the last many months. The state leadership was just a silent spectator. Under the circumstances, when the central government kept silent and the state government was indulging in some other activities instead of saving lives, then this thing escalated, it aggravated. And also, as I said last time, let me repeat it again. People from all communities eagerly waited the visit of the Home Minister. And when the Home Minister arrived, people were very happy, even those people who lost houses, villages, even family members. They waited for Mr. Amit Shah very eagerly, as if he was going to be a savior for all these suffering people. But he came, we appreciate, and personally, I really appreciate that he took 3-4 days to move around, meet the people, and then left after 4 days. People said, well, people expected that something concrete was
You are saying that this, madam, you are basically, madam,
of the Home Minister.
Madam, you are saying, madam, you are basically saying that this cycle of violence is different from the previous one.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, right, even during his visit, there were clashes, burning of houses and killing. And after he left, things aggravated so much. So I lost words, and I don't know what expression I should be using, because with the visit of the Home Minister, we all had that hope